Welcome. Find a comfortable position. Let your breath settle into a gentle rhythm and allow yourself to simply be here. Tonight, we're going on a quiet journey together, a journey through 100 gentle ways to release the weight of self-doubt and find peace within yourself. Imagine you're standing at the edge of a garden at twilight. The air is soft and warm, and there's a gentle path winding ahead of you, lined with smooth stones. Each stone on this path holds a truth, a way forward. Let's walk together. 1. Remember that doubt is not truth. The first stone reminds us of something essential. Self-doubt is a feeling, not a fact. Think of a time when you doubted whether you could learn something new. Perhaps riding a bicycle as a child or learning to swim. You felt certain you couldn't do it. Your mind whispered that you'd fail, that you weren't capable. But that feeling wasn't the truth, was it? It was just your mind trying to protect you from disappointment. The truth revealed itself when you tried anyway. Self-doubt is like a cloud passing across the sun. It feels real, it changes what you can see, but it doesn't change the sun itself. Your capability, your worth, your potential. These remain constant beneath the passing weather of your thoughts. 2. Separate your inner critic from your inner wisdom. As you continue down the path, you notice two voices in the garden. One is harsh and quick to judge. The other is quiet, patient, waiting to be heard. The harsh voice sounds urgent and loud. You're not good enough. Everyone will notice your mistakes. You should just give up now. This is your inner critic, and it often disguises itself as helpful. But listen more carefully. Beneath that noise, there's another voice, softer, steadier. It says things like, you're learning, you're doing your best. It's okay to be imperfect. This is your inner wisdom. The critic speaks from fear and old programming. Your wisdom speaks from truth and compassion. Learning to recognize which voice is speaking is like learning to tell the difference between a warning siren and a gentle bell. Both make sound, but only one guides you home. 3. Question the stories you tell yourself. Further along the path, you find a stone covered in words, stories written over and over until they seem like truth. I always mess things up. I'm not as talented as others. People will judge me. These are the stories self-doubt tells, but here's what's remarkable. You can question them. Imagine you're a curious journalist investigating these claims. I always mess things up. Is that really true? Can you think of even one time when things went well? Of course you can. I'm not as talented as others. Compared to whom? Who decided what talented enough means? And you begin to question these stories rather than accepting them as fact. You start to see the cracks in their foundation. Most of our self-doubt is built on stories we've repeated so often we've forgotten they're just stories, not stone-cold truths. 4. Embrace the wisdom of not knowing. The path curves gently, and you notice the garden opening up to a clearing where the last light of dusk makes everything soft and uncertain. Here's a paradox. Sometimes self-doubt comes from expecting yourself to know everything, to be certain, to have it all figured out. But what if not knowing was actually okay? What if uncertainty was just a natural part of being human? Think of a child learning to speak. They don't doubt whether they should try new words. They just babble and experiment and try. They exist in a state of not knowing, and it's beautiful. Somewhere along the way, we learned that not knowing meant something was wrong with us. But the truth is, every expert was once a beginner. Every master once fumbled in the dark. When we can say, I don't know yet, and that's okay. You will move the foundation that self-doubt needs to grow. 5. Practice self-compassion as a daily ritual. As you walk, you notice a small bench beside the path, worn smooth by countless visitors who've rested here. This is the place of self-compassion. Imagine how you'd speak to a dear friend who came to you filled with doubt. Would you say, yes, you're right, you're terrible and you should give up? Of course not. You be gentle. You be kind. You remind them of their strengths and encourage them to keep going. Self-compassion is offering yourself that same kindness. It's not about pretending you're perfect or ignoring real areas for growth. It's about speaking to yourself with the same warmth you'd offer someone you'll love. Each morning, you might place your hand on your heart and say something simple. I'm doing my best, and that's enough. These small rituals of self-kindness gradually erode the harsh voice of self-doubt. Six, reframe failure as feedback. The path continues, and you see markers along the way, some pointing to success, others to failure. But as you look closer, you notice they're all actually pointing in the same direction, forward. Self-doubt thrives when we see failure as final, as proof we're not good enough. But what if failure was just information? Think of Thomas Edison trying thousands of materials for the light bulb filament. He didn't see each unsuccessful attempt as proof he was a failed inventor. He saw it as discovering one more thing that didn't work, bringing him closer to what would. When you shift your perspective from I failed, so I'm a failure too. I tried this approach and learned it doesn't work. What can I try next? You remove one of self-doubt's greatest weapons. Failure becomes a teacher rather than a judge. 7, surround yourself with belief reflectors. As twilight deepens into early evening, you notice the garden is filled with mirrors, but these are special mirrors. They don't just reflect your image, they reflect back your potential, your strengths, your possibilities. These mirrors represent the people in your life who believe in you. Self-doubt can feel so loud that it drowns out everything else, but there are people who see you more clearly than you see yourself in moments of doubt. They're the ones who say, I believe in you, when you can't believe in yourself. They're the ones who remember your past victories when you can only see current struggles. Actively seeking out these belief reflectors and spending time with them creates an environment where self-doubt struggles to survive. You might think of one person right now who believes in you, and let yourself really feel that truth. 8, focus on process, not just outcome. The path splits ahead, and one direction has a sign that says destination while the other says journey. Self-doubt often fixates on the destination. What if I fail? What if it's not good enough? What if I don't achieve what I set out to do? But when you shift your focus to the process, to showing up, to putting in effort, to learning along the way, you take power away from doubt. Imagine you're learning to paint. If your only measure of success is creating a masterpiece, you'll be filled with doubt every time you pick up a brush. But if your measure of success is, did I practice? Did I try something new? Did I enjoy the process of creating? Then you've already succeeded just by beginning. The outcome becomes less important than the act of engaging fully with what you're doing. 9, acknowledge your past victories. Along the path, there's a wall covered in small cracks, each one marking a moment you overcame something difficult. Self-doubt wants you to forget these moments. It wants you to believe you've never succeeded at anything. But that's not true, is it? You've overcome challenges before, you've learned new skills, you've survived difficult times, you've done hard things. Take a moment right now to remember just one thing you once doubted you could do, but did anyway. Maybe it was getting a presentation. Maybe it was ending a relationship that wasn't healthy. Maybe it was moving to a new place. Maybe it was asking for help when you needed it. That moment is proof, living proof, that self-doubt doesn't have the final word in her story. 10, understand that everyone experiences doubt. As you continue walking, you begin to notice other footprints on this path, thousands of them, from all different people. Here's a truth that self-doubt doesn't want you to know. Everyone experiences it. Most confident seeming people you know have moments of profound self-doubt. The difference isn't that they don't feel it. It's that they've learned not to let it stop them. They feel the doubt and move forward anyway. And not broken or uniquely flawed for feeling doubt. You're human, you're in good company. Every person who's ever created anything, loved anyone, tried something new, or taken a risk, has felt the whisper of doubt. You're walking a path that countless others have walked, and that shared experience connects you to something larger step in your individual struggle. "11. Take the smallest possible step." The garden path ahead looks long, winding far into the distance where you can't quite see. Self-doubt often paralyzes us by making us focus on how far we have to go, how much we have to do, how impossible it all seems. But here's what dissolves the paralysis: taking the smallest possible step. Not a leap, not a sprint, just one small step. If you doubt you can write a book, can you write one sentence? If you doubt you can change careers, can you research one option for 10 minutes? If you doubt you can heal a relationship, can you send one kind message? Self-doubt withers in the face of action, even tiny action, because each small step proves that movement is possible. Each small step is evidence that you're more capable than your doubt claims. And one small step, taken consistently, carries you further than you ever imagined possible. 12. Release the need for permission. As you walk, you come upon a gate. It's not locked. In fact, it's not even closed. But somehow you've been standing in front of it, waiting for someone to tell you it's okay to go through, waiting for permission to try, to create, to speak, to be yourself fully. Self-doubt often disguises itself as patience, as humility, as waiting for the right time. But sometimes what we're really waiting for is permission we don't actually need. Think about something you've been putting off, something you tell yourself you'll do when the time is right, or when I'm ready enough, or when someone validates that it's a good idea. Now imagine giving yourself permission right now, not to be perfect at it, not to succeed at it, just permission to try. The gate has been open all along. Self-doubt convinced you that you needed someone else's key, but you're free to walk through whenever you choose. 13. Befriend your body's wisdom. The path winds past a quiet pool of water, its surface perfectly still, reflecting the deepening sky. Self-doubt lies so often in our thoughts and the endless loop of mental chatter. But your body holds wisdom that your anxious mind sometimes can't access. Notice right now how self-doubt feels in your body. Perhaps it's tightness in your chest, a knot in your stomach, tension in your shoulders. Our body's trying to tell you something, but it's not always what you think. Sometimes that physical sensation isn't a warning sign that you truly can't do something. It's just your nervous system remembering old fears, old wounds, learning to check in with your body and ask, what do you need right now? Can reveal truths your worried mind is missing. Maybe you need rest, maybe you need movement, maybe you just need to breathe more deeply. When you tend to your body with care, you create a foundation of safety from which self-doubt has less power to shake you. 14. Distinguish between healthy caution and limiting fear. Further along, the path splits around a large stone. One way goes around the left side, one around the right. Both led forward. Here's an important truth: not all doubt is bad. Some doubt is your intuition wisely saying, this isn't right for you. Well, this needs more preparation. The key is learning to tell the difference between healthy caution and limiting fear. Healthy caution feels grounded, clear, specific. I need more information before making this decision. Limiting fear feels chaotic, catastrophic, absolute. I could never do this. I'll definitely fail. Everyone will think I'm foolish. Healthy caution points you toward specific, actionable steps. Limiting fear tries to stop you completely. In doubt arises, pause and ask yourself, is this doubt protecting me from real harm? Or is it protecting me from growth? Sometimes the answer is hard to hear, but asking the question itself brings clarity. 15. Create a doubt-releasing ritual. You notice a small fire burning in a copper bowl beside the path. The flames are gentle, warm, inviting. Beside it is a stack of paper and a pencil. This is a place for release. Self-doubt can accumulate like clutter in your mind, each worried thought piling on top of the last until you can't see clearly anymore. Creating a ritual to release these thoughts can be remarkably powerful. It might be writing your doubts on paper and burning them, watching the smoke carry them away. It might be speaking them aloud in an empty room and then stating the opposite truth. It might be visualizing placing each doubt into a balloon and watching it float away into the sky. The specific ritual matters less than the intention. You're acknowledging the doubt, honoring that you felt it, and then consciously choosing to let it go. You're not pretending it never existed. You're simply deciding it doesn't get to live in your mind rent-free anymore. What would you write on the paper right now if you could? What doubt would you most like to release into the flames?
16. Remember that confidence comes from action, not feeling ready. The path begins to climb slightly upward, and you notice your own footprints behind you, evidence of how far you've already come. Here's something self-doubt desperately doesn't want you to know. You don't build confidence by waiting until you feel confident. You build confidence by doing the thing while you're still afraid, while you still doubt yourself, and then discovering you survived it. Think of learning to swim. You didn't gain confidence in the water by standing on the pool deck feeling more and more ready. You gained it by getting in, by feeling uncertain and doing it anyway, by practicing until your body learned what your mind couldn't quite believe. Confidence is built through accumulated evidence of your own capability, and you can only gather that evidence through action. Each time you do something despite your doubt, you're building a library of proof that your doubt isn't the final authority on what you're capable of. 17. Stop comparing your beginning to someone else's middle. The garden opens into a grove where many trees grow at different heights. Some are ancient and tall, their branches spreading wide. Others are young saplings just beginning their journey upward. All of them are exactly where they should be. Self-doubt feeds ravenously on comparison. You look at someone else's finished work, their polished skill, their apparent ease, and you compare it to your own fumbling attempts, your rough drafts, your learning curve. But you're comparing your chapter 1 to their chapter 20. You're comparing your private struggles to their public successes. Everyone who's good at something was once bad at it. Everyone who seems effortlessly talented has hours of invisible practice behind them. That artist whose work you admire created hundreds of pieces you'll never see before they made the one that looks effortless. When you catch yourself comparing, gently redirect. They're on their journey, and I'm on mine. Different doesn't mean less than. 18. Name your doubt patterns. As you walk, you begin to notice that certain doubts appear repeatedly like familiar shapes in the shadows. There's the not good enough doubt. The people will judge me, doubt. The I'm too late, doubt. The I don't deserve this, doubt. Self-doubt often shows up in patterns, and there's power in naming them. And you can say, oh, there's my not good enough story again. You create a little bit of distance between yourself and the thought. It's no longer, I am not good enough, an identity, a fact. It becomes, I'm having a not good enough thought again. A familiar pattern, a habit of mind, something that arises and passes rather than something that defines you. You might even give your doubt patterns names. Treat them with a bit of humor. This good old Gary, the catastrophizer again, imagining the worst possible outcome. This isn't about dismissing your feelings, it's about recognizing them as patterns rather than truths. No team seek evidence of your capability. You come upon a tree covered in ribbons, each one tied there by someone who passed this way before. On each ribbon is written something they once doubted they could do but did anyway. I doubted I could speak in public, but I gave the speech. I doubted I could leave that job, but I found something better. I doubted I could heal from that loss, but here I am, still standing. Your doubt wants you to focus exclusively on evidence of your inadequacy. It highlights every mistake, every criticism, every moment. Things didn't go perfectly. But what if you actively searched for evidence of your capability instead? What if you kept a list, physical or mental, of times you did hard things? Times you learned something new. Times you were braver than you felt. Times people thanked you or valued what you offered. This isn't about arrogance or denying areas where you're still growing. It's about balance. It's about making sure you're looking at the whole picture, not just the parts your doubt wants you to see.
Practice and instead of but. The path curves beside a stream, and you notice how the water flows around obstacles rather than fighting against them. There's a gentle lesson here in language and how we speak to ourselves. Self-doubt loves the word but. I want to try this, but I might fail. I did well, but it could have been better. I'm proud of this, but it's not as good as what others have done. The word but negates everything that came before it. It gives your doubt the power to erase your hope, your progress, your joy. What if you practiced using it instead? I want to try this and I might fail, and that's part of learning. I did well and I can see ways to improve next time. I'm proud of this. And I know others are good at different things, the word, and allows both things to be true. It creates space for your doubt to exist without letting it destroy everything else. It's a small shift in language, but it changes the entire landscape of how you think. 21. Forgive your past self. As you continue walking, you notice markers along the path, small stones inscribed with dates. Some of them mark moments you'd rather forget, choices you regret, versions of yourself you're not particularly proud of. Self-doubt often has roots in the past and shame about who you were or what you did. But here's what's true. Your past self did the best they could with the awareness and resources they had at the time. Maybe you made mistakes. Maybe you hurt people, including yourself. Maybe you stayed too long in situations that harmed you. Maybe you didn't speak up when you should have. That past self deserves compassion, not endless punishment. When you come back with forgiveness rather than judgment, when you can say, I forgive you for not knowing them what I know now, you release one of self-doubt's deepest anchors. You free yourself to be someone new. Someone who has learned and grown. You're not that person anymore. You're who that person became through learning and change. 22. Celebrate micro wins. The path opens into a clearing where fireflies dance in the darkness, each tiny light a celebration of its own existence. Self-doubt keeps your eyes fixed on the summit of the mountain, on the final goal, on the place you haven't reached yet. It tells you that nothing counts until you've completely arrived. But what if you celebrated the tiny victories along the way? What if you acknowledged that you showed up today, even though it was hard? That you tried something new even though you were scared, that you asked for help even though it felt vulnerable, that you kept going, even though you wanted to quit. These micro wins are the foundation of lasting change, that proof of your commitment, your courage, your growth. Celebrating them isn't silly or self-indulgent. It's strategic. It's training your brain to notice evidence of your capability instead of only evidence of your inadequacy. Each small celebration is a light on the darkness, and enough lights make a path you can follow home. 22. Understand that perfection is a moving target. You come upon a sculptor's studio in the garden, and inside you see countless versions of the same statue, each one abandoned partway through. The sculptor was chasing perfection, but perfection kept changing shape. Each time they got close, they imagined something better, something more. This is the trap self-doubt sets when it disguises itself as high standards. Perfectionism isn't really about excellence, it's about fear. It's about believing that if you can just get something perfect enough, you'll finally be safe from criticism, from rejection, from your own harsh judgment. But perfection is a horizon line that moves as you move toward it. There's always something that could be better, smoother, more polished. The question isn't, is this perfect? The question is this honest? Is this complete?
Have I given what I came here to give? Done is often better than perfect because done means you actually offered something to the world instead of keeping it locked away in endless revision, endless doubt.
"24 Rewrite Your Origin Story." The path leads you to a library built into the trunk of an enormous tree. Inside are books, hundreds of them. And you realize they're all different versions of your own story. Some are written in harsh, critical voices. Others are gentle and understanding. Self-doubt often gains power from the story you tell about where you came from, about what your past means. Maybe your story says, "I'm from a family that struggled, so I'll probably struggle too." Or, "I wasn't naturally talented as a child, so I'm just not a creative person." Or, "I failed at this once before, so I'm probably going to fail again." But you get to choose which story you tell. The facts might be the same, but the meaning can change. "I'm from a family that struggled, and I've learned resilience. I wasn't naturally talented, but I've learned the value of persistence. I failed before, and that taught me important lessons I needed to learn." Your past is not a prison, it's raw material. You're the author who decides what it means. 25 creates space between stimulus and response. You notice a bridge ahead stretching across a quiet ravine. On one side is a sign that says trigger, and on the other side a sign that says reaction. But the bridge itself, that space between, that's where freedom lives. Someone criticizes your work and immediately self-doubt floods in. "See, I knew I wasn't good enough." But what if you could create space between that criticism and your response? What if you could pause, breathe, and ask yourself, is this criticism valid? Is it offered with good intention? Does it actually mean I'm not good enough, or does it mean I have an opportunity to grow? That pause, even just a few seconds, changes everything. It's the difference between being controlled by your doubt and choosing how you want to respond. Think of it like this. You can't always control what thoughts arise, but you can choose which ones you invite to stay for dinner. The space between the trigger and your reaction is where that choice lives. 26, remember. That discomfort means you're growing. The path begins to climb more steeply now, and you feel your breath deepen with the effort. It's not easy this part of the journey, but there's something good in a challenge. Self-doubt interprets discomfort as a sign you're doing something wrong, that you're in over your head, that you should turn back. But discomfort is actually a sign you're growing. Think about the last time you built physical strength, perhaps through exercise or labor. Your muscles felt sore, uncomfortable, sometimes even painful. But that discomfort was evidence that you were building something new. The same is true for emotional and mental growth. When you're trying something unfamiliar, when you're stretching beyond your current capacity, when you're challenging old patterns, it's supposed to feel uncomfortable. That's not a bug in the system, it's a feature. The question isn't, how can I avoid discomfort? It's, can I trust that this discomfort is part of my becoming? 27, practice selective attention. You enter a part of the garden filled with sound, birds calling, wind rustling leaves, water trickling over stones, insects humming in the grass. There are dozens of sounds, but you can choose which one to focus on. This is the power of selective attention. Your mind receives thousands of inputs every day, thoughts, observations, feedback, comparisons, worries. Self-doubt wants you to focus on the negative ones, to tune your attention to everything that confirms your worst fears about yourself. But you have more control over your attention than you might realize. You can practice noticing what's going well. You can choose to focus on the email that praised your work instead of the one that criticized it. You can pay attention to the friend who believes in you instead of the inner voice that doesn't. This isn't about denial or toxic causativity. It's about recognizing that where you place your attention shapes your reality. If you're constantly focused on evidence of your inadequacy, that's all you'll see, even when evidence of your capability is right there beside it.
let go of the illusion of control. The path leads to a waterfall, and you watch the water cascade down without hesitation, without trying to control where each drop lands. It simply flows. Self-doubt often comes from trying to control things you can't actually control. What others think of you, whether you'll succeed, how things will turn out, whether you'll be rejected. You exhaust yourself trying to manage every variable to guarantee a specific outcome, to protect yourself from all possible pain. But control is mostly an illusion. You can control your effort, your intentions, your kindness, your practice. You can't control results, reception, or the actions of others. When you release the need to control everything, when you can say, I'll do my best and trust the process, self-doubt loses much of its grip, because doubt thrives on the anxiety of trying to manage the unmanageable. Trust in yourself and the process and the unfolding of things is doubt's natural opposite. 29. Speak to yourself as you would to a child. You come upon a playground in the garden, empty now in the darkness, but still holding the echo of children's laughter. Imagine a child comes to you and says, I'm scared to try. I don't think I can do it. I think I'll mess it up. Would you respond with harshness? Would you say, you're right, you probably will fail, so don't even bother? Of course not. You'd be gentle. You'd encourage them. You'd remind them that trying is what matters, that mistakes are how we learn, that you believe in them. Yet somehow, when it comes to ourselves, we forget this tenderness. We speak to ourselves with a harshness we'd never use with a child. The part of you that doubts, that's afraid, that worries you're not enough, that part is worthy of the same gentle encouragement you'd offer a scared child. When doubt rises, try asking yourself, what would I say to a child who felt this way? And say that to yourself. Your inner child is still there, still listening, still learning what's safe and what's possible. Speak to that child with love. Verity recognized that vulnerability is strength, not weakness. The path winds past a garden of night blooming flowers, their petals open to the darkness without protection, without armor. There's courage in that openness. Self-doubt tells you that vulnerability is dangerous, that showing your uncertainty or fear or struggle means you're weak. So you build walls. You pretend you have it all figured out. You hide your questions and doubts from others, which only makes them grow stronger in the darkness of your private thoughts. But vulnerability is actually a form of strength. It takes courage to say, I don't want. It takes bravery to admit, I'm struggling with this. It takes strength to show up as you truly are instead of as some polished, perfect version. And here's what happens when you're vulnerable. You give others permission to be human too. You build real connections instead of surface ones. You discover you're not alone in your doubt. Everyone is carrying similar fears, similar questions. Vulnerability doesn't make you weak, it makes you real. And real connection, real support, real community, these things dissolve self-doubt far more effectively than pretending you have no doubts at all. 31. Develop a growth mindset about doubt itself. You notice that the path itself has changed. Earlier it was smooth and clear. Now there are roots to step over, stones to navigate. It's more challenging, but also more interesting. Even your relationship with self-doubt can grow and evolve. Right now, you might see doubt as purely an enemy, something to be eliminated, a sign of weakness. But what if you developed a growth mindset about doubt itself? What if doubt could be information, feedback, or even a teacher? Not a teacher you always have to obey, but one that sometimes asks useful questions. Your doubt arises, instead of thinking, I'm broken for feeling this, you might think, what is this doubt trying to protect me from? What does it want me to consider? Sometimes the answer is nothing useful. This is just old fear. But sometimes doubt points to something you genuinely need to prepare for, learn more about, or approach differently. Your relationship with doubt can mature from I shouldn't feel this to I feel this, and I can work with it wisely.
32 create a physical anchor for confidence. If you walk, you pick up a smooth stone from the path and hold it in your hand. It's cool, solid, real. This stone can become an anchor. Self-doubt lives in your thoughts, in the abstract realm of worry and what if. But you also have a body, and your body exists in the present moment, in the realm of what is, creating a physical anchor. A stone, a piece of jewelry, a specific posture, a grounding breath gives you something tangible to return to when doubt spirals. Maybe it's placing both feet firmly on the ground and feeling your connection to the earth. Maybe it's pressing your hand against your heart and feeling it beat. Maybe it's carrying a token in your pocket that reminds you of a moment you were brave. When doubt arises, you can touch this anchor and say, I am here. I am present. I am more than this worried thought. The physical anchor brings you out of the swirling story in your head and back into your body, into this moment where you are actually okay. 33. Except that some days will be harder than others. The path ahead divides into two. One bathed in gentle moonlight, one darker and more shadowed. Both are part of the same journey. Self-doubt sometimes comes from the expectation that once you've overcome it, it should stay overcome. That once you've learned these lessons, you should never struggle again. But growth isn't linear. Some days you'll feel confident, clear, certain. Other days, doubt will creep back in and you'll feel like you've made no progress at all. This doesn't mean you failed. It means you're healing and growth spiral upward. You might come back around to the same issues, but each time you're at a higher level of understanding. The doubt that visits you now isn't quite the same as the doubt that visited you before, because you're not the same person you were before. Some days will be harder than others, and that's okay. Progress isn't measured by never having bad days. It's measured by how you meet those days with a little more wisdom, a little more compassion, a little more trust that this too will pass. 34. Honor your unique timeline. You come upon a grove of trees, each one growing at its own pace. Some are already bearing fruit, their branches heavy with abundance. Others are still saplings, their potential wrapped in tender green leaves. None of them are racing each other. None of them are wrong for being exactly where they are. Self-doubt often comes from believing you should be further along than you are. You see someone your age who's already achieved what you're still working toward, and you think, I'm behind. I'm too late, I've wasted time. But there is no universal timeline for human becoming. Some people find their calling at 20, others at 50. Some learn lessons quickly. Others need more time to integrate what life is teaching them. Your pace is your pace, and it's exactly right for your journey. The person who seems ahead of you might have started earlier, or had different advantages, or is on a completely different path that just looks similar from the outside. You're not late. You're not behind. You're exactly where you need to be to learn, where you're here to learn. Trust your timing. 35. Practice the art of beginner's mind. The path opens into a meadow, and you notice how the grass grows without self-consciousness, without wondering if it's doing you right. There's something beautiful about not knowing, about being a beginner. Self-doubt often intensifies when we feel we should already know how to do something, when we feel embarrassed by a lack of skill or knowledge. But what if you could approach new things, and even familiar things, but beginner's mind? With curiosity instead of judgment? With I wonder instead of I should? Think of how a child approaches the world. Everything is new, everything is interesting. Every mistake is just information. But don't doubt their worthiness to try. They just try. Somewhere we learned that not knowing meant something was wrong with us. But not knowing is actually the beginning of all learning, all discovery, all growth. And you can say, I'm a beginner at this. And that's a perfectly fine thing to be. You remove the shame that feeds self-doubt. Mastery is wonderful, but there's a special kind of joy in the wide open possibility of not yet knowing.
36. Distinguish between solitude and isolation. You find a bench beneath an old tree, a place clearly meant for sitting alone for quiet contemplation. There's peace here. Self-doubt sometimes tells you that being alone means being lonely, that needing time by yourself means something is wrong with you, that solitude is the same as isolation. But they're very different things. Isolation is being cut off from connection, from support, from belonging. It's painful and it feeds doubt. Solitude is choosing to be with yourself, to rest in your own company, to hear your own thoughts without the noise of others' opinions and expectations. Solitude can actually be medicine for self-doubt in the quiet. You can hear your own wisdom beneath the chatter of worry. You can reconnect with who you are when you're not performing or managing others' perceptions. You can practice being enough all by yourself, not because you've achieved anything, but simply because you exist. Learning to enjoy your own company, to find peace in your own presence. This is a powerful antidote to the doubt that tells you that you need constant external validation to be okay. 37. Reframe. What if questions. As you sit, you notice carved into the bench a series of questions, all beginning with what if. But they're not the fearful what ifs you're used to. These are different. Self-doubt loves catastrophic what if questions. What if I fail? What if they laugh at me? What if I'm not good enough? What if it all falls apart? These questions spiral into anxiety, painting vivid pictures of everything that could go wrong. But what if is just a tool? It's neutral. You can point it in a different direction. What if I succeed? What if this goes better than I imagine? What if I'm more capable than I think? What if this mistake becomes my greatest teacher? What if the fin I'm afraid of leads me exactly where I need to go? This isn't about pretending bad things can't happen. It's about recognizing that if you're going to imagine possible futures, you might as well imagine some good ones too. Your brain doesn't know the difference between a real experience and a vividly imagined one. It releases the same chemicals, creates the same neural pathways. So when you imagine success, capability, and growth, you're actually training your brain to recognize these as possibilities, not just the catastrophes your doubt prefers to rehearse. 38. Learn to sit with uncertainty. The path continues past the bench, and ahead you see fog rolling in, obscuring what lies beyond. You can't see where the path leads from here, and somehow, that's okay. We live in a world that values certainty, that promises you can plan and control and know exactly what's coming. Self-doubt flourishes in this environment because it offers a false certainty. You'll definitely fail. You're definitely not good enough. The doubt feels terrible, but at least it's certain. But what if you could build your capacity to sit with not knowing? To say, I don't know if this will work out, and I'm gonna try anyway. To hold the discomfort of uncertainty without collapsing into either blind optimism or paralyzing doubt. Life is inherently uncertain. The future is unknowable, and you are strong enough to move forward anyway. Think of it like walking in a fog. You can't see far ahead, but you can see the next step, and then the next, and that's enough. Uncertainty isn't a problem to be solved, it's a condition to be accepted. When you stop fighting against not knowing, self-doubt loses one of its favorite weapons. 39. Celebrate other success without diminishing your own. Through the fog, you begin to see lights in the distance, other travelers on their own path, their own journeys. Some of them are celebrating, having reached milestones you're still working toward. Self-doubt whispers that this success means something about your failure, that there's a limited amount of success to go around, that someone else winning means you're losing. But success isn't a pie with limited slices. Someone else's achievement doesn't diminish your potential. In fact, their success proves that what you're working toward is possible. When you can genuinely celebrate others and feel real joy for their victories, you free yourself from the exhausting comparison game that fuels so much doubt. You can think, they did it. That's amazing. And that shows me it can be done. Their path and yours are separate journeys. You can cheer for them while still honoring your own pace, your own process, your own unfolding. Abundance thinking, the belief that there's enough success, enough opportunity, enough goodness for everyone. Dissolve the scarcity thinking that makes every achievement a threat to your own worth.
Create a practice, not just goals. The fog begins to clear, and you see that the path ahead is marked not with destinations, but with small altars, places to pause, to practice, to show up again and again. Self-doubt often fixates on goals. When I achieve this, then I'll be confident. When I reach that, then I'll feel secure. But basing your sense of worth on achieving specific outcomes is shaky ground. What if you shifted your focus from goals to practice? Instead of I want to write a book, what if it's I practice writing daily? Instead of I need to lose 20 pounds, what if it's I practice moving my body and nourishing it well? A practice is something you do regardless of outcome. You show up to it again and again, not because you're guaranteed success, but because the practice itself has value. You're not practicing to become perfect. You're practicing to become someone who shows up, someone who tries, someone who keeps going. And here's what happens. When your identity is rooted in your practice rather than your achievements, doubt has less power. You're not waiting to arrive somewhere before you're allowed to feel good about yourself. You're already living the life you want to live, one practice at a time. 41 Recognize projection and take back your power. You notice shadows on the path, shapes that seem menacing until you realize they're just projections, images cast from your own mind onto the neutral darkness. Self-doubt often involves projection, assuming you know what others are thinking about you, believing you can read their judgments, their disappointment, their criticism. They probably think I'm incompetent, they're judging me right now, they can see right through me. But here's the truth, you don't actually know what others are thinking. You're projecting your old harsh self-judgment onto them. Most of the time, people are far too busy thinking about themselves to spend much time judging you. And even when they do judge, their judgment says more about them, their values, their insecurities, their lens than it does about you. When you catch yourself projected, pause and ask, do I actually know this is true, or am I assuming? Often you'll find you're responding to a story you've made up rather than to reality. Taking back your power means recognizing that you can't control what others think, but you also don't need to. Their thoughts about you are not facts, they're just thoughts. 42 Find meaning in the struggle. The path climbs again, steeper now, more challenging. Your legs feel the effort, but there's something purposeful about this climb. Self-doubt tells you that struggle means you're on the wrong path, that things should be easier if you're doing what you're meant to do. But struggle often carries meaning. If things worth doing are rarely easy. The growth you're seeking requires you to stretch beyond your current capacity, and that stretching is uncomfortable. But what if you could find meaning in the difficulty itself? What if the challenge is part of what makes it valuable? Think about a time you worked hard for something and finally achieved it. The victory was sweet precisely because it wasn't handed to you. The struggle shaped you. It taught you things you wouldn't have learned on an easier path. When self-doubt arises in the face of difficulty, you'll ask yourself, what is this struggle teaching me? What am I becoming through this challenge? The difficulty isn't evidence that you're not meant for this. It's often evidence that you're growing in exactly the way you need to grow. 42 Practice radical acceptance of this moment. You pause on the path and simply stand still right here. Right now, this exact moment with all its imperfection. Self-doubt pulls you constantly into the past, regretting what you did or didn't do. Or into the future, worrying about what might or might not happen. It keeps you anywhere but here, but this moment right now is the only place where life actually happens. It's the only place where you have any power.
radical acceptance doesn't mean you love everything about your current situation. It doesn't mean you stop working toward change. It means you start fighting against the reality of what is. This is where I am right now. This is what I'm fearing. This is what's true in this moment. When you accept what is, you free up all the energy you were using to resist reality. And you can use that energy to actually respond to your situation with a wisdom. Doubt thrives when you're at war with the present moment. When you're thinking, I should be further along, I should feel different, I should be someone else. Acceptance says, I am here, this is now. And from this honest starting point, I can take the next right step.
Remember that courage and fear coexist. As you stand on the path, you feel both the stirring of fear and something else, a quiet determination, a willingness to continue. They exist together side by side. Self-doubt tells you that if you feel afraid, you must not be ready, you must not be brave, you must not be capable. But courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is feeling the fear and choosing to move forward anyway. Every brave person who has ever lived has felt doubt, has felt fear, has wondered if they could do what they set out to do. The difference is they didn't wait for the fear to disappear before they acted. They acted while afraid. They let courage and fear walk side by side down the same path. You can feel uncertain and still show up. You can doubt yourself and still try. You can be afraid and still be brave. These things aren't contradictions, they're companions. The presence of fear doesn't mean you're weak. It often means you're doing something meaningful, something that matters to you, something that requires you to risk and grow. Feel the fear, honor it, and then do it anyway. 45, trust the wisdom of your intuition. You come to a place where the path splits in 3 directions and there are no signs to guide you. Only a quiet knowing in your body about which way feels right. Self-doubt has taught you to mistrust yourself, to second-guess every instinct, to seek validation outside yourself before you trust what you know inside. But beneath all the noise of doubt and worry, you have intuition, a deep knowing that doesn't come from logic or analysis, but from some wiser part of you. Think of a time when you knew something without knowing how you knew it, when you had a feeling about a person or situation that turned out to be accurate. When you made a decision that didn't make sense on paper but felt right in your bones, that's your intuition. Self-doubt tries to shout over it, to drown it out with what-ifs and yes buts. But your intuition is still there, patient and steady, waiting for you to listen. Learning to trust it doesn't mean ignoring practical considerations. It means giving your inner knowing the seat at the table alongside reason and logic. It means asking, what does my deepest self know about this? And then having the courage to listen to the answer. 46, let go of who you think you should be. As you walk, you know his clothing hanging from the branches of trees, different outfits, different costumes, different versions of a self you thought you were supposed to become. The successful business person, the perfect parent, the effortlessly talented artist, the person who has it all together. Self-doubt often stems from the gap between who you are and who you think you should be. You've absorbed messages from family, culture, media about what success looks like, what worthiness looks like, what a good life looks like. And then you measure yourself against these ideals and find yourself lacking. But what if you let go of who you think you should be and make peace with who you actually are? What if your quirks aren't flaws to fix, but features that make you uniquely you? What if your path doesn't have to look like anyone else's path? What if you're allowed to want different things, value different things, be different things than what you absorbed you were supposed to want and value and be? The should self is a ghost, a phantom, an impossible standard, the real you, messy, imperfect, still learning, beautifully human. That's who you're here to be. Self-doubt dissolves when you stop trying to become someone else and start accepting who you already are. 47, understand that healing isn't linear.
The path curves back on itself, and you realize you've passed this tree before. For a moment, doubt whispers, "See, you're going in circles. You're not making progress." But then you notice you're not at the same place. You're higher up the spiral. You can see further now. Healing from self-doubt, like all healing, isn't a straight line from broken to fixed. It's a spiral. You'll work through something, feel better, and then suddenly you're back in a familiar pattern of doubt. This doesn't mean you're failed. It means you're encountering the same issue from a new level of understanding. Each time you circle back, you have more tools, more awareness, more capacity. The wound you are visiting isn't the same wound. You've changed, even if it doesn't feel like it in the moment. Some days you'll feel confident and whole. Other days, doubt will crash over you like a wave, and you'll wonder if you've learned anything at all. Both experiences are part of healing. Progress isn't measured by never having bad days. It's measured by how you meet those bad days. With a little more compassion, a little more perspective, a little more trust that this too shall pass.
You pass a studio with wide windows, and inside you see someone making something, painting, writing, building, creating. Their hands are moving with purpose. Self-doubt often intensifies when you're only consuming, scrolling through others' achievements, watching others' creativity, absorbing others' lives. The comparison machine runs constantly, and you always come up short, but something shifts when you create. It doesn't matter what you create: art, meals, gardens, code, music, stories, solutions to problems. The act of creating puts you in a different relationship with yourself and the world. You're not just a passive observer judging yourself against others. You're actively bringing something into existence that wasn't here before. Creation is inherently vulnerable. You're putting something of yourself into the world, and that requires courage. But it's also deeply affirming. Every time you create something, you're proving to yourself that you have something to offer, something to give, something valuable inside you seeking expression. You don't have to be good at it. You don't have to share it. You just have to make the thing in the making. Self-doubt recedes because you're too busy creating to doubt. Fording recognized the difference between shame and guilt. The path leads to a pool of water, dark and still. When you look into it, you see not your reflection, but your mistakes, your regrets, the moments you wish you could redo. Self-doubt often has roots in shame, the feeling that I am bad rather than I did something bad. Shame says you are fundamentally flawed, broken, unworthy. Guilt says you did something that doesn't align with your values and you can make amends. Shame is paralyzing. It tells you there's no point in trying because you're inherently not enough. Guilt, on the other hand, can be productive. It points you towards specific actions you can take to repair, to grow, to do better. When you notice self-doubt spiraling, check whether you're caught in shame or guilt. If you're thinking, I am a failure, rather than I failed at a specific thing, you're in shame territory. You can gently redirect. I made a mistake. I'm learning. I can do better next time. This action doesn't define my entire worth as a person. Separating your essential self from your actions and mistakes gives you room to grow without drowning in a feeling that you're fundamentally broken. 50 build bridges, not walls. You come to a ravine and you have a choice. Build a wall to hide behind, or build a bridge to cross over self-doubt. Often makes you want to protect yourself, to build walls, to hide your vulnerabilities and struggles. You isolate yourself, thinking no one else feels this way. If they knew how much I doubted myself, they'd think less of me. But walls don't just keep out judgment. They keep out connection, support, love. What if instead you built bridges? What if you shared your doubts with trusted others and discovered you're not alone? What if you found communities of people working through similar struggles? What if you let people see you as you really are and discover they love you more for your honesty, not less?
Connection is one of the most powerful antidotes to self-doubt. When you share your struggles and others respond with "me too," or "I believe in you," or "I've been there," the isolation that feeds doubt begins to crumble. You don't have to share everything with everyone, but finding even one person you can be truly honest with about your fears, your doubts, your struggles. That bridge can carry you across chasms you couldn't cross alone. 51. Practice gratitude for your body. The path softens beneath your feet and you become aware of your body, how it's been carrying you this entire journey without complaint, without judgment, without doubt. Your heart beating steadily, your lungs breathing continuously, your legs moving you forward. Self-doubt often extends to our bodies. We judge them, criticize them, compare them to impossible standards. We treat them as problems to solve rather than miracles to appreciate. But your body is doing its best for you. Always, it's healing your wounds without you having to think about it. It's processing your emotions. It's allowing you to experience this life, this moment, this journey. What if you practice gratitude for your body, not for how it looks, but for what it does? Thank your feet for carrying you. Thank your hands for creating, touching, holding. Thank your senses for letting you experience beauty. When you shift from criticism to gratitude, something softens. You begin to treat your body with more kindness, more respect, more compassion, and that kindness ripples outward to how you treat your whole self. You can't hate yourself into becoming someone you love, but you can appreciate yourself into becoming someone who doubts less and trusts more.
"52. Understand that rest is productive. You find a hammock strung between two trees, swaying gently in the night breeze. It invites you to stop, to lie down, to simply be still. Self-doubt often comes from hustle culture, from the belief that you should always be doing more, achieving more, proving more. Rest feels dangerous. It feels like falling behind, like laziness, like giving up. But rest is not the opposite of productivity. It's the foundation of it. Your body needs rest to repair and strengthen. Your mind needs rest to process and integrate. Your spirit needs rest to remember what matters. Think of how a field lies fallow to restore its nutrients, how athletes build rest days into training to allow muscles to recover and grow stronger. Rest isn't wasted time, it's essential time. When you allow yourself to rest without guilt, without the nagging voice saying you should be doing more, you're actually investing in your capacity to show up fully when you are active. You're honoring your humanity. You're trusting that your worth isn't determined by constant productivity. Sometimes the bravest, most doubt-dissolving thing you can do is simply rest. 53. Redefine what success means to you. As you rest, you notice stars overhead arranged in patterns that mean something different to everyone who looks at them. The same sky, infinite interpretations. Self-doubt often measures you against someone else's definition of success, society's definition, your parents' definition, your industry's definition. And when you don't meet those external standards, you feel like you're failing. But what if you define success for yourself? What if success wasn't about money or status or achievement, but about living aligned with your values, about being kind, about learning and growing, about creating meaningful relationships, about showing up authentically, about contributing something, however small, that makes the world a little better? When you measure yourself against your own authentic definition of success rather than someone else's, the ground shifts beneath your feet. Suddenly you might discover you're already successful in ways that matter to you.
even if you haven't achieved what others expect. The doubt that comes from chasing someone else's dream begins to dissolve when you get clear on your own dreams, your own values, your own definition of a life well lived. 54. Learn to receive compliments and support. Someone has left gifts along the path, small tokens, notes of encouragement, offerings of support. Self-doubt makes it hard to receive these things. When someone compliments you, you deflect. Oh, it was nothing. When someone offers help, you say, no, I'm fine, I can handle it. You've learned to be self-sufficient, to not need anything from anyone, because meeting feels vulnerable and vulnerability feels dangerous. But learning to receive compliments, help, support, love is a practice that directly counters self-doubt. When someone says you did great, try simply saying, thank you. Let it in and let yourself feel it, even if just for a moment. When someone offers help, try saying, yes, thank you. I would appreciate that. Receiving doesn't make you weak or needy, it makes you human. It allows others the gift of giving. It allows the universe to support you. Every time you receive graciously, you're telling yourself, I am worthy of good things. I am worthy of support. I am allowed to not do everything alone. That message, repeated over time, rewrites the story self-doubt has been telling. 55. Make peace with being misunderstood. The path is yours alone now, winding in a direction only you can see. Others might look at your path and not understand it. They might question your choices. They might think you're going the wrong way. Self-doubt often comes from the fear of being misunderstood, from needing everyone to understand and approve of your choices. But the truth is, you will be misunderstood sometimes. People will project their own fears and limitations onto your journey. They'll give you advice based on their path, not yours. They'll judge what they can't understand. And that's okay. Being misunderstanding doesn't mean you're wrong. It means you're on your unique path, and not everyone can see what you see or know what you know. Making peace with being misunderstood is incredibly freeing. It means you stop trying to explain yourself to everyone. You stop seeking universal approval. You trust your own knowing more than others' opinions. You can be kind, you can listen to feedback, but ultimately, you're the only one who has to live your life. When you release the need to be understood by everyone, you free yourself to be truly yourself. And self-doubt has less power to pull you off your path.
57. Brace your seasons of change. The garden around you shifts. Suddenly its autumn leaves golden and red falling softly to the ground. Then winter, bare branches stark and beautiful against the sky. Then spring, buds appearing like promises. Then summer, full and lush and abundant. Self-doubt makes you think you should be consistent, always the same, always performing at the same level. But are not a machine, you are a living being, and living beings have seasons. There are seasons of expansion when everything flows easily, when you're productive and creative and energized. There are seasons of contraction when you need to pull inward to rest, to let things fall away. There are seasons of darkness when you're composting old versions of yourself, breaking down what no longer serves. There are seasons of emergence when new growth appears tentatively, testing the light. None of these seasons is better or worse than the others. They're all necessary. They're all part of the cycle. When you accept that you will have different seasons, you stop judging yourself for not being in perpetual summer. You trust that winter serves a purpose, that darkness precedes dawn, that the seed must rest in soil before it can become the flower. 57. Stop rehearsing disaster. In the distance, you see yourself standing on a stage, but you're not performing. You're rehearsing failure, rehearsing rejection, rehearsing catastrophe, playing the scene over and over in your mind. Self-doubt loves rehearsal. It convinces you that if you imagine every possible way things could go wrong, you'll be prepared, you'll be protected. So you spend hours, days, years mentally rehearsing disaster. The presentation that goes terribly,
The relationship that ends badly, the dream that crumbles, the humiliation you're sure is coming. But here's what this rehearsal actually does. It doesn't protect you. It exhausts you. It makes you live through terrible experiences that may never happen. It trains your brain to expect the worst. What if you stop rehearsing disaster and started rehearsing success? Now in a forced and authentic way, but simply allowing yourself to imagine things going well. Visualizing yourself handling challenges with grace. Seeing yourself receiving the success you're working toward. Your brain doesn't distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. It creates the same neural pathways either way. So rehearse the performance going well. Rehearse yourself being capable. Rehearse the good outcomes. At the very least, you'll have lived through something beautiful in your imagination instead of something terrible. 58. Find your anchor and why. You see a lighthouse in the distance. Its beam cutting through the darkness, steady and sure. No matter how the waves crash or the wind blows, it stays rooted, focused on its purpose. Self-doubt often intensifies when you've lost touch with why you're doing what you're doing. When your why is external, to impress others, to prove something, to meet someone else's expectations, doubt can easily shake you. But when your why is deeply rooted in your own values and purpose, doubt has less power. Why are you pursuing this dream? Not because you should or because it looks good, but because it matters to you in some essential way. Maybe because it aligns with your values. Maybe because it's how you express love or creativity or service. Maybe because it connects you to something larger than yourself. When doubt rises and whispers, why bother? You'll probably fail anyway. You can return to your anchoring why. I'm doing this because. That connection to purpose doesn't eliminate doubt, but it gives you a reason to continue despite the doubt. The lighthouse doesn't stop shining because the night is dark. It shines because that's its purpose, what's yours. 59. Practice the pause. Time itself seems to slow and stop. As a gap here, a space, a moment of pure stillness between one breath and the next. Self-doubt often gains power from speed, from reacting immediately to every fearful thought, from making decisions in panic, from responding to triggers without space for wisdom. But you can practice the pause when doubt arises and demands an immediate response. You should quit, you should hide, you should give up right now. You can pause. You can take 3 deep breaths. You can wait 5 minutes, an hour, a day. You can create space between the thought and the action. In that pause, you give yourself options. In that pause, your wise self has a chance to speak. In that pause, the intensity of the emotion can settle enough for you to see more clearly. The pause is a tiny rebellion against the urgency that doubt creates. It's a quiet assertion that you don't have to do what fear tells you to do right when it tells you to do it. You can wait. You can breathe. You can choose your response rather than being controlled by your reaction. The pause is where your power lies. To understand that you don't owe anyone your potential. You see yourself carrying a heavy bag, and when you look inside, it's full of other people's expectations, what they think you should achieve, who they think you should become, the potential they see in you that you feel obligated to fulfill. Self-doubt often comes from the crushing weight of feeling like you owe the world your maximum potential at all times. Like you're letting people down if you don't achieve everything you're capable of. Like your worth is determined by how much you accomplish. But here's a truth that may feel radical. You don't owe anyone your potential. Not your parents, not your teachers, not society, not even yourself. You're allowed to be human. You're allowed to have limits. You're allowed to choose rest over striving. You're allowed to pursue things that don't optimize your potential but bring you joy. You're allowed to be mediocre at things. You're allowed to not live up to what others think you're capable of. Your worth is inherent. It exists simply because you exist, not because of what you achieve or create or become. When you release the burden of owing your potential to others, When you give yourself permission to just be without constantly having to become more, accomplish more, prove more, that's when self-doubt begins to lose its grip. You're enough as you are right now, exactly as you are. 61. Cultivate awe and wonder. The garden opens up into a vista that takes your breath away. Stars beyond counting, galaxies swirling in impossible beauty, the vast mystery of existence spreading out before you. Self-doubt keeps your focus narrow, zoomed in on your flaws, your fears, your small self and its perceived inadequacies. But when you lift your eyes to something larger, to beauty, to nature, to the mysteries you can't explain, to the vastness of existence, perspective shifts. You're part of something so much bigger than your worries, standing under a night sky full of stars, or watching ocean waves, or witnessing a piece of art that moves you, or holding a newborn baby, or watching a sunrise. These moments of awe remind you that you're a small part of an infinite mystery. And somehow, paradoxically, that makes your struggles feel both less overwhelming and more meaningful. Less overwhelming because you see how small your problems are in the grand scheme. More meaningful because you see how precious this life is, how miraculous that you get to be here at all. Cultivating awe, actively seeking experiences that fill you with wonder, is medicine for self-doubt. It takes you out of your head and puts you back in the world, connected to something vast and beautiful and beyond your small fears. 62. Let your values guide your decisions. In a crossroads in a garden, you see not signs pointing at outcomes, but mirrors reflecting values. Integrity, kindness, courage, creativity, connection, freedom. Which one calls to you? Self-doubt often paralyzes decision-making because you're trying to predict outcomes, guarantee success, avoid all possible mistakes. You're weighing probabilities and trying to see the future, but you can make decisions differently. Not based on predicted outcomes, but based on your values. Ask yourself, which choice aligns most closely with who I want to be? Which choice honors what matters most to me? If you value courage, choose the option that scares you or calls to you. If you value integrity, choose honesty even when it's uncomfortable. If you value growth, choose the challenge over the comfortable familiar. When you make decisions based on values rather than on trying to guarantee outcomes, you can't really make a wrong choice. You're living in alignment with what matters to you, and that itself is success. The outcome might not be what you hope, but you acted with integrity. And there's no self-doubt in that, only the clean feeling of having been true to yourself. 63. Forgive yourself for not knowing what you didn't know. You see your younger self sitting on a bench looking lost, making choices that present. You can see your mistakes, but younger, you couldn't see what you see now. Self-doubt often involves harsh judgment of your past self. I should have known better. How could I have been so stupid? Why did I stay so long or leave so soon, or trust that person or not trust myself? But you're judging past you with present. Use knowledge and wisdom is not fair. Your past self did the best they could with the awareness, resources, and capacity they had at that moment. He didn't know what they didn't know. You can't fault yourself for not having wisdom you hadn't yet earned to experience. What you can do is honor the journey. Honor that younger self who was doing their best, even when their best led to pain or mistakes. Forgive them for not knowing. Thank them for the lessons they learned so that you could become who you are now. When you stop punishing yourself for not knowing them what you know now, you free yourself from a particularly cruel form of self-doubt. The one that insists you should have been wiser before you had the chance to learn wisdom. 64. Recognize that no is a complete sentence. You come to a gate, and beyond it are 1,000 paths, 1,000 opportunities, 1,000 requests for your time and energy. You feel the pull to say yes to all of them, to prove your worth through availability, through helpfulness, through never disappointing anyone. Self-doubt often makes it hard to say no. You worry that setting boundaries means you're selfish, difficult, or not a good person. You worry that if you say no, people won't like you anymore. You worry that every no is evidence you're not kind enough, generous enough, good enough. But boundaries are how you protect your energy, your time, your well-being. No is how you make space for the yeses that truly matter. No is how you honor your limits. No is a complete sentence. You don't have to justify it, explain it, or apologize for it. When you can say no without drowning in guilt or doubt, you're asserting that your needs matter, that your time has value, that you're allowed to choose how you spend your precious energy. People who truly care about you will respect your boundaries, and people who don't respect your boundaries are showing you who they are. Saying no with confidence is one of the most powerful ways to tell self-doubt that you trust yourself to know what's right for you. 65, create a future self you're becoming. In the distance, you see a figure walking toward you. As they get closer, you realize it's you. But a version of you from the future, a you who has walked through the doubt and come out the other side. They're not perfect. They still have challenges, but they carry themselves differently, with more ease, more self-trust, more compassion. Self-doubt keeps you stuck by focusing on who you've been, on past failures, on old identities, but you're not who you were. You're becoming someone new with every choice you make. What if you could envision your future self, not the impossible perfect version, but the real, flawed, beautiful human who has learned to walk with doubt instead of being paralyzed by it? What is that future, that present you is still learning? How do they treat themselves? What do they make peace with? You can start making choices from that future self's perspective. When doubt arises, ask, what would my future self do here? How would the version of me who has already overcome this respond? You can step into that identity now, try it on, practice being that person. Because the truth is, you become your future self not by waiting, but by choosing again and again to act as if you're already becoming them. And one day you'll look back and realize that you became Ben. 66, trust that you're exactly where you need to be. You stop walking and simply stand in the garden in this moment, in this exact spot. And you realize something profound. Every step of your journey has led you here. Every mistake, every triumph, every moment of doubt, every moment of courage, all of it was necessary to bring you to this exact point. Self-doubt makes you believe you're behind, you're lost, you've wasted time, you should be somewhere else. But what if you're exactly where you need to be? What if even the detours were essential? What if even the times you felt most lost were teaching you something crucial? What if this moment right now, with all its imperfection and uncertainty, is perfect in its own way? This doesn't mean you stop growing or striving. It means you trust the journey. You trust that even when you can't see the pattern, there is one. You trust that you're being led, even when the path is dark. You trust that your timing is right, even when it doesn't match anyone else's. When you can look at where you are, really see it, accept it, even appreciate it. Self-doubt loses its power to torment you with should-haves and if-onlys. You're here, you're exactly here. And here's exactly where you need to be. You're deep in the dream realm now, where the garden has become infinite, where time moves differently, where truth speaks in symbols and whispers. The boundaries between you and the garden have dissolved. You are the path, you are the trees, you are the starlight filtering through leaves. In this deep space, let these truths settle into the furthest reaches of your being, places your conscious mind can't touch, but your soul knows well. '67. Honor the wisdom of your emotions. You find yourself standing beside a river and the water is made of feeling. Joy flowing alongside grief, anger moving with tenderness, fear dancing with excitement. All of it moving together, none of it wrong. Self-doubt often comes from judging your emotions, from believing that what you feel is evidence of your weakness or brokenness. You think you shouldn't feel afraid, shouldn't feel sad, shouldn't feel angry or overwhelmed. But your emotions are messengers, not mistakes. Fear tells you that something matters to you. Sadness tells you that you've loved and lost. Anger tells you that a boundary has been crossed. Overwhelm tells you that you need rest or support. Even doubt itself is information. It might be pointing to something that genuinely needs attention, or it might be an old pattern rising up to be healed. When you start fighting your emotions and start listening to them, when you can say, I feel this, and that's okay. And what is this feeling trying to tell me? That's when emotions become guides rather than evidence of failure. You don't have to be ruled by your feelings, but you don't have to exile them either. They're part of your humanity, part of your wisdom, part of how you navigate this complex world. 68 released the story of Not Enough. In the river, you see your reflection, but written across it in shimmering letters are the words you've told yourself so many times. Not smart enough, not talented enough, not experienced enough, not confident enough, not worthy enough, not ready enough, not enough, not enough, not enough. Self-Doubt's favorite story is the story of scarcity, of lack, of insufficiency. It's a story so old and so familiar that you've come to believe it's true, that it's who you are. But it's just a story. It's not fact. It's not destiny. It's a narrative you absorbed from 1,000 sources, messages from childhood, from culture, from moments of pain and rejection and comparison. And here's what's radical. You can change the story. Not by pretending you're perfect or denying areas where you're still growing, but by shifting the fundamental narrative from I am not enough to I am enough, and I am still learning, from I lack what I need to. I have what I need for this moment, and I can grow into what I need for the next. The story of not enough keeps you small, keeps you safe, keeps you from risking and trying and becoming. But you're not required to keep telling it. You can set it down like a book you finished reading. You can choose a new story, one where you're the protagonist who is flawed and human and still worthy, still capable, still enough. 69 practice being rather than doing. The river invites you to something to float, to stop swimming, to stop trying to get anywhere and just be held by the water. Self-doubt thrives in a culture that values doing over being, that measures worth by productivity and achievement. You've learned that your value comes from what you accomplish, what you produce, how useful you are. And when you're not doing enough, when you're resting or struggling or just existing, doubt creeps in. You're wasting time, you're falling behind. You should be doing more. But you are a human being, not a human doing. Your worth is not earned through constant activity. You get value simply because you exist. The tree doesn't doubt its worth when it's not bearing fruit. The ocean doesn't question itself when it's still. Even in your stillness, even in your rest, even in moments when you're not producing anything at all, you are enough. Practice just being, sitting without agenda, breathing without purpose, existing without justification. In those moments of pure being, self-doubt is nothing to latch onto because you're not performing or achieving or proving anything. You're simply here, alive, present, and that is enough. 70 understand that comparison steals joy. You rise from the river and walk through a hall of mirrors, but these mirrors don't show you. They show everyone else. Their successes, their achievements, their seemingly perfect lives. And as you look at each one, you feel yourself shrinking, diminishing, becoming less. This is what comparison does. Self-doubt feeds voraciously on comparison. Social media has made it worse, giving you endless opportunities to measure yourself against others' highlight reels, to see what everyone else is doing and feel like you're falling short. The comparison is a rigged game. You're comparing your messy internal reality to a curated external presentation. They're comparing your chapter 3 to their chapter 30. You're comparing your unique path to their completely different journey. And even when you come out ahead in comparison, it's hollow, because your worth isn't relative. It's not dependent on being better than someone else.
When you catch yourself in the comparison trap, try to redirect. Their journey is their journey, my journey is mine. Different paths, different timings, different destinations, all valid. Comparison steals your joy, your peace, your ability to appreciate your own progress. The only comparison that serves you is comparing yourself to who you were yesterday, last month, last year. Am I growing? Am I learning? Am I becoming more myself? That's the only measure that matters. 71 Make friends with failure. You come to a garden where beautiful flowers grow from composted failures. Broken dreams turn to soil, mistakes feeding new growth. Every blossom here was once something that didn't work, something that fell apart, something that seemed like an ending. Self-doubt is terrified of failure. It sees failure as final, as proof, as the thing that will confirm your worst fears about yourself. So it keeps you from trying, from risking, from putting yourself in any situation where you might fail. But failure is just feedback, it's information. It's how you learn what works and what doesn't. Think of the baby learning to walk. They fall dozens, hundreds of times. They don't interpret each fall as evidence that they're fundamentally unable to walk. They just get up and try again. Somewhere along the way, you learn to see failure differently, to make it mean something terrible about you. But you can relearn. You can make friends with failure. You can say, I tried this and it didn't work. Interesting. What can I learn? What will I try next? When failure becomes a teacher instead of a judge, when it becomes data instead of destiny, self-doubt loses one of its most powerful weapons. You're not afraid to try because you're not afraid to fail. You know that failure is just part of the process of becoming. 72 Cultivate self-trust through small promises. One on the can. You see stones stacked carefully into cans, small promises kept, one piled on another, building something solid and reliable. Self-doubt often comes from self-mistrust. You've let yourself down before. You've made commitments and not followed through. You've promised yourself you'd change and then haven't. So when a new opportunity or change arises, part of you doesn't trust you to follow through. The doubt whispers, why bother starting? You'll just quit like you always do. But self-trust can be rebuilt one small promise at a time, not grand proclamations. I'm going to completely transform my life. But tiny, achievable commitments. I'm going to drink water when I wake up. I'm going to write one sentence. I'm going to take a 5-minute walk. And then you keep that promise to yourself, and then another small one. And another. Each kept promise is a stone in a can. Each one says to your doubtful mind, see, I do what I say I'll do. I can trust myself. Over time, these small promises build a foundation of self-trust that doubt can't easily shake. You become someone who keeps commitments to yourself, not because you're perfect, but because you practice showing up for yourself in small, consistent ways. And when you trust yourself, self-doubt has less room to operate. 72 Remember that your story isn't over. You see a book lying open on a bench and it's your story, but you're only partway through. There are chapters behind you, yes, with their mistakes and struggles and detours. But there are also blank pages ahead waiting to be written. Self-doubt wants you to believe the story is already decided. That who you've been determines who you'll always be, that past failures predict future ones. But your story isn't over. The protagonist of your life is still growing, still learning, still capable of unexpected turns and transformation. The person you've been is not the person you have to stay being. You can learn new skills, you can heal old wounds, you can make different choices, you can become braver, wiser, kinder, you can surprise yourself. Some of the best chapters of people's lives come after their hardest chapters. Some of the most beautiful growth happens after painful failures. You're not finished yet. You're still being river. When doubt tells you, this is just how you are, this is all you'll ever be, you can remember, the story isn't over. There are blank pages ahead, and you're holding a pen.
74 finds strength in softness. The garden leads you to a grove where everything is gentle. Moss soft underfoot, light filtered through leaves, air warm and tender. There's strength here, but it's not the hard, rigid strength you learn to value. Self-doubt often makes you think you need to be harder, tougher, more armored. That vulnerability is weakness and gentleness is naivety. That if you're soft, the world will crush you. So you build walls, you perform confidence you don't feel, you pretend nothing touches you. But there's a different kind of strength in softness. A strength to remain tender in a hard world. The strength to stay open when closing down would be easier. The strength to be gentle with yourself when harshness is the habit. Think of water. It's soft, it yields, it flows around obstacles. And yet it can carve canyons through stones. Softness doesn't mean weakness. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let yourself be tender, be vulnerable, be gentle. Sometimes the strongest choice is to say, I'm struggling instead of I'm fine. To ask for help instead of insisting you can handle everything alone. To treat yourself with kindness instead of harsh discipline. Softness is strength. And in your gentleness with yourself, self-doubt begins to soften too. 75, trust the process of becoming. You notice that the garden itself is changing, always changing. Flowers opening and closing, leaves unfurling, fruit ripening, seeds falling. Nothing is static. Everything is in process. Self-doubt wants certainty, completion, arrival. It wants you to be finished, perfected, done. And when you're not, when you're still messy and unfinished and in process, doubt says you're failing. But you're not meant to be finished, you're meant to be becoming. Life is not a destination, but a journey, not a product, but a process. You're not a problem to be solved, but a person to be unfolded gradually over time. The seed doesn't doubt itself for not being the flower yet, it trusts the process. It grows at its own pace, responding to conditions, going dormant when needed, pushing through when ready. You can trust your process too. Trust that you're developing in your own timing. Trust that what looks like stagnation might be deep work happening beneath the surface. Trust that you're exactly as you're meant to be in this moment of your becoming. The process is not linear. It's not always visible, but it's happening. You're becoming. And that becoming is not something to doubt, but something to trust, even, especially, when you can't see all the ways you're growing. 76, practice the serenity you accept. You come to a stone engraved with ancient words. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Self-doubt often exhausts you by fighting against what cannot be changed. You doubt yourself for things outside your control. The family you were born into, the opportunities you didn't have, the ways your body, your mind works, the things that happen to you. But some things simply are. Some things cannot be changed, only accepted. And acceptance is not defeat, it's wisdom. It's knowing where your power lies. You can't change the past. You can heal from it, learn from it, integrate it, but you cannot change it. You can't control what others think or do. You can influence, you can communicate, but you cannot control. You can't force certain outcomes no matter how hard you work. You can do your best and trust the unfolding. And you stop wasting energy fighting the unchangeable, and instead direct that energy toward what you actually can influence, your choices, your responses, your actions, your growth. You stop doubting yourself for things that were never yours to control. You find peace and acceptance and power and focus in on what's actually in your hands. 77, create rituals of transition. The path leads you through a doorway, and on one side is who you've been. And on the other side is who you're becoming. You pause in the threshold and the sacred in between. Self-doubt intensifies during transition, starting a new job, ending a relationship, moving to a new place, beginning a new chapter. And these liminal spaces, you're no longer who you were, but not yet who you'll be. It's disorienting. Doubt rushes in to fill the uncertainty. But you can create rituals to honor these transitions, to mark them as sacred rather than just surviving them in anxiety. A ritual might be writing a letter to your former self, thanking them for bringing you this far. It might be lighting a candle to symbolize the new beginning. It might be a walk in nature where you consciously leave old identities behind. It might be gathering friends to witness your transition. Rituals don't have to be elaborate. They just have to be intentional. They create a container for the change, a way of saying this matters. I'm acknowledging the shift. I'm honoring both the ending and the beginning.
'78 honor the courage it takes to keep going. You see yourself walking, and you notice you've been walking this whole time, through doubt, through fear, through exhaustion, through moments when you wanted to stop, and yet here you are, still going. Self-doubt makes you focus on what you haven't done, where you've fallen short, how far you still have to go. But it rarely acknowledges the courage it takes just to keep showing up. To get out of bed on days when you don't want to try again after you failed, to stay open after you've been hurt, to keep creating when no one seems to notice, to continue learning when you feel stupid, to remain kind when the world is harsh. This is courage. Not the dramatic, celebrated kind, but the quiet, daily kind. The kind that doesn't make headlines but makes lives. The kind that keeps you putting one foot in front of the other even when the path is dark and you can't see where it leads. Take a moment to honor yourself for that. For all the mornings you got up anyway. For all the times you tried despite your fear. For still being here, still walking, still becoming. That's not nothing, that's everything. 79, remember that healing is not linear, and that's okay. The path beneath you suddenly loops back, spirals, doubles over itself. You've been here before. This doubt feels familiar. Haven't you already worked through this? Self-doubt about your healing from self-doubt. It's a particular kind of painful. You think, I should be over this by now. I should have healed this already. Why am I still struggling with the same old patterns? But healing doesn't follow a straight line from broken to fixed, it spirals. You circle back to old wounds at deeper levels. You encounter the same patterns of new awareness. You heal in layers, not all at once. And sometimes healing means integrating your wounds rather than erasing them, making peace with your scars rather than pretending they don't exist. You're not failing at healing just because you still have hard days. You're not broken beyond repair just because you still feel doubt sometimes. You're human, and human healing is complex, non-linear, ongoing. The fact that you're still working on it, still showing up here on healing, still trying. That itself is evidence of your strength, not your weakness. Be patient with yourself. Healing takes the time it takes. And that's exactly how long it should take. 80, let yourself be seen. In the darkness, lights begin to appear. Other souls, other travelers, their presence warm and welcoming. They see you, really see you, and they don't turn away. Self-doubt tells you that if people really knew you, saw your struggles, your fears, your imperfections, your doubts, they would reject you. So you hide. You perform. You show only the polished parts and keep the messy parts locked away. But hiding is exhausting. And it's lonely. Because even when people love the version you're showing them, you know it's not all of you. So their love can't quite reach the parts that need it most. What if you let yourself be seen, not to everyone, not all at once, but to someone, to a trusted friend, a therapist, a partner, a community? What if you said, this is what I'm struggling with, this is where I feel inadequate, this is what scares me? Most of the time, what happens is not rejection, but recognition. Me too. They say I felt that way too. Being seen in your vulnerability doesn't make you weak, it makes you real. And being loved for your real self, messy parts and all, is the kind of love that actually heals the places where self-doubt lies. You are worthy of being fully seen and fully loved, not despite your imperfections, but including them. 81. Practice saying and yet. You come to a wall covered in all your doubts, written out in stark letters. I'm not good enough. I don't know what I'm doing. I'll probably fail. I'm too old, too young, too late, too much, too little. And beneath each doubt, you see two small words, and yeah. Self-doubt presents its statements as if they're the end of the conversation, the final word. But they don't have to be. You can add in, yeah.
I'm not good enough, and yet I'm gonna try. I don't know what I'm doing, and yet I'm learning. I'll probably fail, and yet failure is part of growth. I'm scared, and yet I'm doing it anyway. These two words, and yet, acknowledge the doubt without letting it have the final say. They create space for both the fear and the courage, both the limitation and the possibility. Their refusal to let doubt be the only voice in a conversation that doubt can speak. You're not denying it exists, but it doesn't get to make all the decisions. And yet is where power lies, in that small space between acknowledging the doubt and choosing to move forward anyway. Practice it. Let it become a bridge between where you are and where you're going.
Ready to trust that rest is not retreat. You find a nest woven into the branches of a tree, soft and safe and inviting. Your body is so tired, self-doubt whispers that resting means giving up, that taking a break means you're weak, that you should be able to push through without stopping. Hustle culture has taught you that rest is laziness, that your worth is tied to your productivity, that stopping is the same as quitting, but rest is not retreat. Rest is how you sustain yourself for the long journey. It's how you integrate what you've learned. It's how you heal. It's how you fill your reserves so you have something to give. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot run a marathon without water stops. You cannot grow without periods of dormancy. Even the soil needs to lie fallow sometimes. Even winter is necessary for spring. When you rest, really rest, without guilt, without the voice saying you should be doing more, you're not retreating from your journey. You're honoring the fact that you're human, that you have limits, that sustainability matters more than speed. Trust that when you rest, you're not falling behind. You're gathering strength for what comes next. You're being wise, not weak. 83 celebrate the questions, not just the answers. The garden opens into a library, but the books here are full of questions rather than answers. Each spine is inscribed with a beautiful question, and there's reverence in the not knowing. Self-doubt is terrified of questions. It sees them as evidence that you don't have it all figured out, that you're uncertain, that you're inadequate. So it pushes you to find answers quickly, to be certain, to have it all mapped out. What if questions are gifts? What if not knowing is actually a form of wisdom? What if curiosity is more valuable than certainty? The questions you're living with right now, about your purpose, your path, your next steps, your worthiness, these aren't problems to solve as quickly as possible. They're invitations to explore, to discover, to become. Sometimes the most important work is sitting with a question long enough to hear what it's really asking. Sometimes the growth happens not in finding the answer, but in how you live the question. Celebrate your questions. Honor your uncertainty. Let yourself not know. In that space of genuine not knowing, you're open to possibilities you couldn't see when you were forcing certainty. The questions are leading you somewhere. Trust them. 84 recognize that your worth is not up for debate. In the center of the library, there's a pedestal, and on it sits a simple truth written in gold: you are worthy. Not because of what you've achieved, not because of who approves of you, not because you've earned it or proven it or deserve it, just because you are. Self-doubt wants to make your worth ambitional. Something you have to earn through achievement. Something you can lose through failure. Something that fluctuates based on external validation. What your fundamental worth as a human being is not up for debate. It's not a question to be answered or a prize to be won. It exists simply because you exist. You are worthy of love, of belonging, of kindness, of opportunity, of grace. Not because of anything you've done, but because you're a living being in this world. When you really internalize this, when it moves from an intellectual concept to a felt truth, everything shifts. You stop trying to prove yourself. You stop seeking constant validation. You stop measuring yourself against impossible standards because your worth is already established, it's inherent. It's not something self-doubt can actually touch, no matter how loud it gets. You might forget this truth sometimes, you might lose touch with it, but it remains true whether you feel it or not. You are worthy,
and that's not up for debate. 85 makes space for joy without justification. The library dissolves and you're in a meadow where children are playing, laughing for no reason except that they're alive, and the grass is soft and the air is sweet, pure, unjustified joy. Self-doubt makes you feel like you haven't earned joy yet, but you need to achieve certain things before you're allowed to be happy. Like celebration is premature until you've completed everything on your list, so you postpone joy. You tell yourself you'll be happy when you reach the goal, solve the problem, prove yourself. But joy doesn't have to be earned. You don't need a reason to feel good. You don't need to justify experiencing beauty, pleasure, delight, fun. You're allowed to laugh before you've fixed all your problems. You're allowed to rest in happiness even while you're still growing. You're allowed to celebrate small victories. You're allowed to feel good for no reason at all.
Joy is not frivolous or naive or something to be rationed carefully. It's medicine, it's resistance. It's remembering that you're alive and that life, for all its difficulty, also contains beauty and connection, moments of pure sweetness. Make space for joy. Let yourself feel it without apologizing for it. Let it exist alongside your struggles, not just after them. Joy doesn't mean pretending everything is perfect. It means choosing to notice and savor the good that exists right now in this imperfect moment. 86, understand that belonging starts with yourself. You find yourself in a circle of others, and you're waiting to see if they'll let you in, if you're worthy of being part of the group, if you belong here. But then you realize you're the one deciding whether to step into the circle. Self-doubt makes you seek belonging from outside yourself. You look for others to validate that you're acceptable, that you fit, that you're enough to be included. And when you don't feel that external validation, you doubt yourself even more. But belonging actually starts from within. It starts with belonging to yourself, with accepting yourself, with including all the parts of you that you've rejected or hidden, with coming home to yourself. When you belong to yourself, when you've gathered up all your scattered parts and said you're all welcome here, an external belonging becomes less desperate. You're not looking for others to complete you or validate you. You're showing up as yourself and finding the communities and connections where you naturally fit. You stop contorting yourself to fit into spaces that weren't meant for you. You stop abandoning yourself to gain approval. You trust that the right people will appreciate the real you, and the ones who don't simply aren't your people. Belonging to yourself first is the foundation. Everything else flows from there. 87, practice the sacred I don't know. You stand at another crossroads, and someone asks you which way to go, and the truest answer rises up from deep within you, I don't know. And instead of shame, you feel relief. Self-doubt punishes you for not knowing. It tells you that uncertainty is weakness, that admitting you don't have the answers means you're inadequate. So you pretend to know. You make up answers. You fake certainty. You hide behind expertise you don't really have. But I don't know is one of the most powerful, honest, sacred phrases you can speak. It's the beginning of learning. It's the doorway to discovery. It's the humility that allows growth. I don't know. Open space for curiosity instead of pretense. Invites collaboration instead of isolation. It allows you to be a beginner, a student, a seeker. Some of the wisest people in the world say, I don't know, more often than others because they understand how much there is they don't know. Practice saying it. I don't know and I'm willing to find out. I don't know and that's okay. I don't know and I'm curious to learn. And that honest admission is freedom. You're not pretending anymore. You're just being real. And real is so much more restful than the exhausting performance of certainty. 88, trust the transformation happening in darkness. You're in a cocoon now, wrapped in darkness, unable to see what's happening.
Everything feels like dissolution, like falling apart. But this is where the caterpillar becomes the butterfly, not in light and visibility, but in hidden, mysterious darkness. Self-doubt fears the dark times, the periods when you can't see progress. When everything feels uncertain or stuck or like it's falling apart. These feels like failures, like times when nothing is happening. But some of the most profound transformation happens in darkness. The seed germinates on the ground before it breaks through the soil. The caterpillar dissolves completely before it reorganizes into a butterfly. Winter's dormant secret seed, spring's explosion of growth when we're in a dark time. When you can't see the path, when you don't know what's happening, when it feels like you're falling apart rather than coming together. Trust that transformation might be happening beneath the surface. Trust that the darkness is not emptiness but fullness, not nothing but everything, not the end but the beginning. What you're becoming can't always be seen or measured or tracked. Sometimes you have to trust the process even when, especially when you can't see the results. The darkness is not your enemy. It's the womb of your becoming. You're in that sacred hour now. The deep stillness before the world wakes, when night begins its gentle transformation into day. The garden around you glows with the softest pre-dawn light, everything hushed and holy. These final truths are the most precious ones, the ones you carry with you as you emerge from this journey. Let them settle into you, like the last notes of a beautiful song, resonating long after the music stops.
Remember that you've survived every difficult day so far. You look back along the path you've traveled, not just tonight but through your whole life. You notice something remarkable. You've made it through every single difficult day you've ever faced. Every moment you thought would break you, you survived it. Self-doubt tells you that the next challenge will be the one that finally proves you can't handle things, that you're not strong enough, that you'll crumble. Look at the evidence of your own life. The heartbreaks you thought would destroy you, you're still here. The failures that felt devastating, you moved through them. The losses, the rejections, the disappointments, the dark nights of the soul, you survived them all. Some days you survived with grace. Other days you barely survived at all, but you did survive. You're here. You made it through. That's a 100% success rate of getting through hard times. When doubt whispers that you can't handle what's coming, you can look back at your own history and say, actually, the evidence suggests I can. I always have. You're stronger than you know, more resilient than you give yourself credit for. Your track record proves it. 90 practice gratitude for the journey, not just the destination. As dawn begins to break, you see the path stretching behind you, every step illuminated in soft golden light. You realize the journey itself has been the gift. Self-doubt keeps your eyes fixed on destinations, on goals, on the moment you finally arrive and can prove you're enough. What if the journey, with all its stumbles and detours and unexpected turns, is actually where life happens? What if the growth you're seeking isn't waiting at some future destination, but is occurring right now? In each moment you show up, each time you try, each instance you choose courage over comfort. The person you're becoming isn't something that happens later when you've achieved your goals. It's happening now in how you meet each challenge, how you speak to yourself, how you keep going. Practice gratitude for this moment, this step, this breath, for the lessons you're learning, for the strength you're building, for the awareness you're gaining. The destination matters, yes, but the journey is where you actually live, and it's a journey. With all its imperfection and uncertainty, it's shaping you into someone more compassionate, more resilient, more fully yourself, that's worth celebrating right now, before you've reached any finish line. 91, understand that you're allowed to change your mind. You come to a place where the path branches into new directions you hadn't noticed before. Options that didn't exist yesterday or that you weren't ready to see. Self-doubt often comes from the pressure to stay consistent, to stick with what you've said or chosen or committed to.
Even when it no longer fits, you're worried at changing your mind and you were wrong before, that you're flaky or unreliable or don't know yourself. But you're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to grow into new understandings. You're allowed to choose differently as you learn more, as circumstances change, as you change. The path you chose last year doesn't have to be the path you choose today. The dream you had doesn't have to remain your dream forever. The identity you claim can evolve. Changing your mind isn't failure, it's adaptation. It's responding to new information. It's honoring your growth. You're not the same person you were a year ago or 5 years ago. Why would you expect your choices to stay frozen? Give yourself permission to evolve. Your consistency lies not in never changing, but in continuing to listen to yourself, to honor your truth as it shifts and deepens, to choose with integrity in each new moment. 92 find peace in good enough. The rising sun illuminates a beautiful tapestry hanging between trees, intricate, colorful, meaningful. When you look closely, you see it's not perfect. There are irregular stitches, slight imperfections, small mistakes. And somehow they make it more beautiful, more real, and more human. Self-doubt is perfectionism's best friend. Together they tell you that anything less than perfect is failure, that good enough isn't enough, that you should keep refining and revising and improving until it's flawless. Perfect is an illusion, it's a moving target. It's a standard that keeps you perpetually dissatisfied, perpetually striving, perpetually feeling inadequate. What if good enough is actually wonderful? What if done is better than perfect? What if the imperfections are what makes something genuine, authentic, human? The meal doesn't have to be restaurant quality to nourish. A conversation doesn't have to be eloquent to be meaningful. A creation doesn't have to be masterful to be worthwhile. Sometimes good enough is exactly enough. Sometimes finished and imperfect serves the world better than perpetually polished but never shared. Make peace with good enough. It's not settling, it's wisdom. It's recognizing that perfection is not the goal. Contribution, connection, and growth are.
93 trust that you're not alone in this. As the garden fills with morning light, you see other travelers emerging from their own journeys through the night. Some look tired, some look renewed. All of them have walked through their own gardens of doubt. And you realize you're not alone in the struggle. Self-doubt is incredibly isolating. It makes you believe you're the only one who feels this way, that everyone else has it figured out, that your struggles are unique evidence of your inadequacy. But the truth is, nearly everyone experiences self-doubt. The most successful people you admire have doubted themselves. The most confident-seeming people have questioned their worth. The difference isn't that they don't feel doubt, it's that they don't let it stop them. They feel it and move forward anyway. When you remember that self-doubt is part of the human experience, not a personal failing, shame begins to lift. You can reach out. You can share your struggles. You can ask for support. You can offer support to others who are struggling with the same fears. There's community in this. There's connection. You're walking a path that millions have walked before you, and millions will walk after you. You're not alone. You've never been alone. And in that shared humanity, there's comfort and strength. 94 celebrate how far you've come. You pause and look back at where you started this journey. So far behind you now, almost out of sight. The distance you've traveled is remarkable. Self-doubt has a terrible habit of minimizing your progress. It focuses on how far you still have to go and dismisses how far you've already come. It compares you now to some idealized future version instead of to who you were yesterday, last month, last year. But take a moment right now to really see your progress. Think about who you were a year ago, what you knew then versus what you know now, what you were capable of then versus what you're capable of now. The fears you've faced, the skills you've built, the healing you've done, the ways you've grown, even if it doesn't feel like much, even if you still have far to go, you've come afar too. And that deserves recognition. That deserves celebration. You didn't just wake up here. You walked here step by step through doubt and fear and exhaustion. You chose to keep going. You chose to keep growing.
You chose yourself again and again. That's not nothing. That's extraordinary. Honor the journey you've made. Celebrate the person you're becoming. You've earned it. 95 know that your presence matters. The sun breaks over the horizon and suddenly everything is illuminated, including you. You see yourself clearly and you see how your presence affects the garden around you. Where you stand, flowers bloom a little brighter. Self-doubt tells you that you don't matter, that your contribution is too small to count, that the world will be the same whether you showed up or not. But that's a lie. Your presence matters. The specific combination of gifts and perspectives and experiences that is uniquely you. No one else has that. The way you see the world, the kindness you offer, the work you do, the love you give, the simply being yourself in all your imperfect humanity, it matters. You affect people in ways you can't always see. A word you spoke casually might have changed someone's day. A creation you shared might have inspired someone. Your presence in someone's life might have made them feel less alone. You don't have to be extraordinary to matter. You don't have to achieve great things to be valuable. Your ordinary presence, your everyday existence, your simple showing up as yourself, that contributes something to the world that wouldn't be here without you. The world needs you. Not a perfected version of you. Not a doubt-free version of you. Just you. Exactly as you are. Continuing to show up and be yourself. Embrace the power of yet. In the morning light, you see signs along the path, and they all end with the same small word. I haven't mastered this yet. I don't understand yet. I'm not there yet. Self-doubt speaks in absolutes. I can't. I'm not. I'll never. But you can add one small word that changes everything yet. I can't yet acknowledge his current reality while leaving room for future growth. I'm not good at this yet. Recognizes where you are while trusting you can develop. I haven't succeeded yet. Honors the journey while maintaining hope for the destination. Yet, there's a bridge between who you are and who you're becoming. It's honest about limitations while remaining open to possibilities. It's humble about where you are while confident about your capacity to grow. When self-doubt makes absolute statements about your limitations, add yet. That one small word transforms a closed door into an open path. It shifts you from fixed to growth-oriented, from stuck to moving, from hopeless to hopeful. You're not there yet. And that's perfectly okay, because yet means you're on your way. 97. Practice self-forgiveness daily. As you walk, you release small stones you've been carrying. Each one a moment of self-judgment, of harsh criticism, of unforgiveness toward yourself. You watch them drop away, feel yourself become lighter. Self-doubt thrives on unforgiveness, on holding yourself accountable for every mistake, every imperfection, every moment you fell short. But what if you practiced forgiving yourself daily? Not for the big dramatic failures, though those too, but for the small everyday moments. Forgive yourself for the awkward thing you said, for not being as productive as you planned, for feeling emotion you think you shouldn't feel, for being human in all the messy ways humans are. Forgiveness doesn't mean you don't learn from mistakes. It means you don't punish yourself endlessly for being imperfect. It means you offer yourself the same grace you'd offer a friend. Each day you can ask yourself, what do I need to forgive myself for today? And then simply, gently, you can say, I forgive myself. I did my best with what I knew and who I was in that moment. I release that. I begin again. Self-forgiveness practiced daily gradually dissolves the accumulation of shame and judgment, defeats self-doubt. You become someone who can make mistakes and keep going, who can fail and still be worthy, who can be imperfect and still be loved by yourself most of all. Manier, remember that courage is not the absence of doubt. You see warriors gathered in the garden, but they're not fearless heroes from stories. They're ordinary people who felt afraid and acted anyway. People who doubted themselves and tried regardless. People who were terrified and chose courage. Self-doubt makes you think you need to eliminate all uncertainty before you can act. That you should wait until you're confident. That courage means not feeling afraid, but that's not how courage works. Courage is not the absence of doubt or fear. Courage is feeling the doubt, acknowledging the fear, and choosing to move forward anyway. It's saying I'm scared and I don't know if I can do this, and then taking the first step. Every brave person who ever lived felt doubt. They just didn't let it be the final word. They didn't wait for it to disappear. They carried it with them and acted anyway. You don't need to overcome all your doubt before you can be brave. You can be brave right now, doubt and all. You can take the next step while still feeling uncertain. You can try while still questioning if you're good enough. That's what makes it courage. Not the absence of doubt, but the decision to move forward in spite of it. You are already braver than you know. "99 Trust the unfolding. The garden opens into a vast vista, and you see the sun fully risen now, illuminating a landscape that stretches farther than you can see. So much possibility, so much unknown, and you realize you don't need to see it all to trust it. Self-doubt wants certainty, control, a guaranteed outcome. It wants to see the entire path before taking the first step. It wants to know exactly how things will turn out before it's willing to try. But life doesn't work that way. Life is an unfolding, a gradual revelation, a story being written as you live it. You can't see the whole path, you can only see the next step. And that's enough. Trust the unfolding. Trust that even when you can't see where you're going, the path is revealing itself as you walk. Trust that you don't need to have it all figured out. Trust that the right opportunities, the right people, the right lessons will appear when you're ready for them. Trust that your life is unfolding in its own perfect timing, even when it doesn't match your timeline. Trust that there's a deeper intelligence at work. Call it the universe, call it life, call it grace, that's guiding you toward your becoming. You don't have to control it all. You don't have to see it all. You just have to trust and take the next step, and then the next, and then the next. The unfolding will take care of itself. 100 know that you are enough right now as you are. And here, at the end of the journey, at the beginning of the day, you arrive at the simplest and most profound truth of all. You stand in the full light of morning and you hear it, not from outside yourself, but from within, from the deepest, wisest, most loving part of you. You are enough. Not when you achieve the goal, not when you overcome all your doubt, not when you finally become who you think you should be. Right now as you are. With all your imperfections and uncertainties and fears, with your struggles and your strengths, with your past mistakes and your future possibilities, exactly as you are in this moment, you are enough. You've always been enough. You will always be enough. Self-doubt has told you 1,000 times that you're not, but you need to be more, do more, prove more. But it's gonna lie. Your worth is not conditional. It's not something you earn or lose. It exists simply because you exist. You are a miracle, a conscious being in an infinite universe, capable of love and growth and creativity and connection. That alone makes you enough. Everything else is just the beautiful, messy, and perfect process of being human. You are enough. Say it to yourself. Let it sink in. Feel it in your bones. You are enough. Not eventually, not conditionally. Now always, forever enough. The journey is complete. 100 truths now live in you, woven into the fabric of your being like threads of gold through tapestry. The garden has given you everything it had to offer, and dawn is fully arrived. The birds are singing. The air is fresh, everything feels new. You've walked through the night and emerged into morning. You've faced your doubt and gathered truths to carry with you. You've learned that doubt doesn't have to stop you, that you're strong, but then you know that you're not alone, that you're enough. As you drift in these last moments before waking, or as you sink into the deepest sleep, let all 100 truths settle into you. You don't need to remember them all consciously. They're part of you now. They'll rise up when you need them. They'll guide you when doubt visits again. And they will visit, because doubt is part of being human. And now you know. You know how to walk with it instead of being paralyzed by it. You know how to question it instead of believing it. You know how to move forward despite it. You know most of all that you are worthy, you're capable, you are enough. Rest now in His knowing. Sleep deeply in His peace. Wake gently into a new day, carrying these truths with you. You are becoming who you were always meant to be. And that becoming is beautiful, even, especially in its imperfection. Thank you for walking this journey. Thank you for showing up for yourself. Thank you for being exactly who you are. Sleep well, dear soul. The garden will always be here when you need it. And so will you, strong, resilient, enough, exactly as you are. All is well. You are well. You are loved. You are enough.